Come, let us explore the complete guide to no-self meditation. So what do we mean by no-self? Well, no-self fits under the heading of right view. The essence of enlightenment is the mastery of the Eightfold Path. Mastery simply means getting so good at something, getting so good at a skill that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. As children, we mastered the art of using the commode instead of our diapers, of brushing our teeth, tying our shoes, riding a bike, reading, writing, and arithmetic. The key to mastering the entirety of the Eightfold Path is to simply practice, is to authentically practice the seventh and eighth folds, which are mindfulness and meditation. Practice this simply by sitting and breathing and watching and resting approximately once every 12 hours. We cannot help but practice, but master, no less practice, but master the remaining six folds of the path, including the right view of no self. So, since this comes not from philosophy, nor from blind faith, but rather simply from sitting and breathing and watching and resting, then right off the bat, you can get the basic idea that what we're being taught is contrary to what is popularly taught. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. "90% of humans, including meditation teachers, have been shaped and controlled by yang, by patriarchy, to the point where they are habitually rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. This path might take you many places, but mastery of the Eightfold Path is not one of them. The authentic practice of mindfulness and meditation is not one of them. The visceral mastery of no self is not one of them. The only way to get there from here is by traversing the path of yin, the path of spiritual matriarchy, the path that strengthens our already existing tendencies to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So let's explore, let us bring the authentic practice of mindfulness, meditation, and no self. Let's view that through the lens of neuroscience, which I have found to be the key to dispelling most confusion. When we make the mistake of actively focusing and actively analyzing, we so exhaust our medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortices that we trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. However, when we passively cooperate with the sympathetic and parasympathetic facets of our autonomic nervous system, not only does that automatically calm the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, but it automatically stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. Sounds great. Sign me up. How do we do that? Simply by sitting and breathing and noticing and relaxing once every 12 hours or so. We automatically cause ourselves to viscerally master no self, whether we want to or not. What is the key to mindfulness? We practice mindfulness when we silently and mentally recite a verb such as feel, every time we passively notice air enter our nostrils. For in doing so, whether we know it or not, we are accessing the middle bit of our spinal cord, which already functions, which automatically functions as the core of the sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception. You know, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, and from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with all this stuff that we noticed? And what has this to do with no self? What do we do with that which we have noticed? We meditate. But how does that work? Every time we rest in harmony with our exhalation, that is performing an active meditation, regardless of what we have been taught. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we intend to or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of the parasympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. It has evolved. Let me jump back for a second. Well, let's move forward. It has evolved to help us to relax during our exhalation to such a degree that which we have noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, or simply not self, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It would seem that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand? And so we see that whether we are talking about emptiness or not self, they are merely metaphors. They are merely figures of speech describing the fleeting experience latent within each exhalation. So if this is fleeting, if this isn't permanent, then why bother with it? We don't bother with it. It is the effortless byproduct of sitting and breathing and feeling and resting about once every 12 hours or so. Doing so, as I've already mentioned, is the key to mastering the entirety of the Eightfold Path, which is the essence of enlightenment. There is a lie put forth by the elitists of patriarchy that once we truly understand no self and emptiness, we will never suffer again. But that's a lie. It flies in the face of neuroscience. It sets people up to failure, that their spirits may be crushed, their will may be broken, and they might better superstitiously serve the patriarchy. By mastering the entirety of the path, we still feel the full spectrum of human perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. What then is the difference between one who has mastered the Eightfold Path and one who has not? One who has not mastered the path is a slave to their survival impulses, which are seldom beneficial to act upon. These impulses control their choices, utterances, and deeds. However, when we have mastered the Eightfold Path, it is love and empathy that control our choices, utterances, and deeds 90% of the time, more than 90% of the time. The more we have mastered the Buddha's Eightfold Path, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from contrived calculations, not from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is known by many things, such as right effort or effortless effort, or wu wei, or doing without doing, or going with the flow, or being in the zone, or joyful love's deeply centered spontaneity. So remember, no self simply means that as we relax into our exhalation, what we have noticed during our previous inhalation fleetingly stops defining us. This is not a belief. This is not a philosophy. This is not an affirmation. It is an effortless byproduct of sitting and breathing and watching and resting approximately once every 12 hours. So normally I sit on the ground with a nice backdrop. My back's not behaving itself right now, so I'm on the couch. This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Ray Skywalker early Sunday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. As we passively notice air exit our nostril, let us silently and mentally recite the verb watch. As we passively notice air exit our nostril, let us silently and mentally recite the verb rest. One silent and mental recitation of watch, followed by one silent and mental recitation of rest, constitutes a single repetition. As a preliminary practice, let us assume the Pasadi Mudra or meditation gesture. The easiest way to do that is for us to use the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. How are we to keep track of our next dozen repetitions? Simple. We draw our attention to our right hand. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch during our inhalation, we advance our right thumb across our fingers, beginning with our right little finger's lower set of creases and concluding with our right index finger's upper set of creases. That'll make more sense when we practice together as a team right now. Together, let us practice the dozen repetitions of watch rest. How are we going to keep track of our next solitary repetition? By turning our attention to our left hand, touching the tip of our left thumb to its little finger's lower set of creases. We now count our second set of a dozen repetitions on our right hand together. To keep track of our next solitary repetition, our next solitary recitation of watch rest, we advance our left thumb. Now that you get the basic idea of how we count 13 solitary repetitions and 13 sets of a dozen repetitions each, let us rest our hands palms up in our lap. If this seems overwhelming, remember, repetition is the mother of skill. Simply attend these live streams approximately once every 12 hours, and within a week or so, you too could master this path. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 13 minutes or so. Let's shift gears. Let's switch gears from watching and resting that's weird to feeling and resting. You'll notice that the lettering is in a different color, and that's to help guide our energy guide our energy to coalesce in our chest. To facilitate that, we can use the Sati Mudra, also known as the mindfulness gesture. It's simple. We simply use the tip of our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. As we passively notice our chest swell with breath, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. This is the essence of mindfulness. As we passively notice our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb rest. This is the essence of meditation. you have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.